The ground shook with every explosion. Dust filled the air. The sky over Zarnok 3 was dark with smoke. Commander Varric, leader of the Zarnok Defense Forces, stood inside a damaged bunker, staring at the battlefield outside. His soldiers, scared and bleeding, fought with whatever weapons they had left. Laser turrets sparked and failed. Shield generators flickered and died. The humans, they were coming, and nothing seemed able to stop them. Varric slammed his fist on the control panel. How many soldiers left? He shouted. A young Zarnok officer, her scales pale with fear, answered, "Only 2 battalions, sir. Ammunition low. Energy cores at 20%. Ground barriers breached in 3 sectors. Terran units moving fast." Varric cursed. The humans had landed on Zarnok 3 just 2 weeks ago. First there were orbital bombardments, then wave after wave of armored vehicles, air drones, and infantry. Their tactics were brutal, fast, and devastating. Zarnok forces couldn't keep up. For every human soldier that fell, 10 more took their place, and their machines. Varric's mind flashed back to the sight of Terran tanks, massive metal beasts with rage through city walls like paper. Zarnok plasma cannons barely scratched their armor, and their infantry. Humans moved with a speed and coordination the Council had never warned about. Small squads, but deadly, working like one mind. Varric had underestimated them, so had everyone else now. His planet was burning, sir, the communications officer shouted. The west sector has fallen. Terran units advancing toward Central Command. Varric felt his chest tighten. That there was only one option left. A dark, dangerous option. "Prepare the beacon," he said quietly. The officer froze. "But sir, you mean that beacon?" "Yes," Varric growled. "We call them now. We don't have a choice." The officer hesitated, then obeyed. Deep beneath the bunker, hidden for centuries, was the Onyx beacon. A relic from old wars, a weapon, and a curse. Once activated, it sent a signal across the stars, reaching one group, the Onyx Swarm, mercenaries. Some said that monsters, others believed that too. All Varric knew was they answered when called, and they destroyed everything in their path. Enemies, allies, civilians, it didn't matter. But right now, he needed anything that could stop the humans. Varric stood before the ancient beacon. Its surface was cracked, covered in strange symbols from forgotten languages. His claws trembled as he reached for the activation switch. "Forgive me," he whispered. And with that, the beacon came to life. A deep hum filled the air. Dark purple light poured from the device. Energy waves shot into the sky, tearing through the clouds, reaching far beyond the Zarnik system. The signal was sent. The call for help, or maybe the call for doom. In orbit, aboard the TSS Revenant, Captain Sarah Knox watched her tactical display. Her fleet had crushed Zarnik's orbital defenses days ago. Dropships landed hourly. Her Marines reported steady progress. The campaign was almost over. Ground forces confirmed Central City almost secured. Her comms officer reported. Sarah nodded. "Tell them good work. Let's finish this." But then her sensors officer spoke. "Captain, new energy spike detected, coming from the planet's surface. Unusual readings, unknown frequency. And wait, it's spreading fast." Sarah walked over. The display showed the signal spreading like a shockwave, reaching into deep space. Her heart sank. "That's not Zarnak tech," she muttered. "Double quotes, no ma'am. And it's not Council standard either," the officer said. "Trace the signal destination," she ordered. The officer worked fast, then froze. "Ma'am, the signal isn't targeting anyone specific. It's a general emergency broadcast. But the code, it matches old records from the siege archives. Something called the Onyx Swarm." Sarah's eyes widened. Her XO Commander Torres stepped forward. "You're kidding." "No sir, it's them." Sarah turned toward her crew. "Red alert. Full fleet readiness. Prep anti-orbital defenses and ground artillery. Get me a direct link to High Command." The mood shifted instantly. Every officer knew the stories. The Onyx Swarm didn't negotiate, didn't take prisoners, didn't stop until everything was Ashdod back on the surface. Zarnok soldiers watched the sky. The beacon pulsed, again and again, sending its terrible message. Some soldiers cheered, some cried, others stood in stunned silence in the central city ruins. Human troops paused, staring at the growing storm clouds. Then the ground began to vibrate. Terran seismic sensors went crazy. Massive gravitational distortions appeared in the upper atmosphere. Human lookouts reported dark shapes emerging from the void. Not ships, not normal ones at least. Giant, black, twisted, biomechanical forms. ships that looked like they were grown, not built, some shaped like spiked spears, others like massive claws. Energy readings went off the charts. Tactical officers aboard Terran ships yelled reports over the comms unknown contacts entering low orbit, counting 20, no, 40, no, now 60 ships, and climbing massive displacement waves. They're moving fast. On the ground, human soldiers watched in horror as black pods began falling from the sky, screaming through the air like meteor showers, slamming into the ground with devastating force. Dust clouds rose, and when they settled, the Onyx swarm had arrived. Towering figures stepped from the craters. Each Onyx ground unit stood over 4 meters tall, plated in armor that looked like obsidian mixed with steel, limbs ending in plasma cannons and razor-edged blades. Red sensor eyes blinked to life, their movements fast, inhuman, unstoppable. Terran Marines opened fire immediately, bullets, lasers, railgun slugs, but the swarm advanced, unfazed. One Onyx warrior charged into a Terran squad, slicing through armor like paper, throwing soldiers like dolls. Explosions erupted as Onyx artillery beasts began firing, lobbing dark matter shells into human fortifications. Within minutes, entire Terran lines fell back. Communications broke apart. Captain Knox listened helplessly as unit after unit reported heavy losses. "This is Delta Squad. We're being overrun, Command. This is Outpost Charlie. They're everywhere. We need evac." Static followed. Knox slammed her fist on the console. "Divert orbital batteries. Fire on their landing zones. Now." But even orbital strikes barely slowed them down. Zarnok soldiers watched from hidden bunkers, horrified that help they called had no loyalty. Onyx units turned their weapons on the remaining Zarnok positions too. One plasma shell reduced a Zarnok tower to molten rubble. Varek stood in shock. His decision had doomed them all. In the Terran command center, Commander Torres spoke grimly. "Captain, it's not just us they're after. They're attacking the Zarnoks too." Sarah Knox's face hardened. "Wonderful. Looks like we're all in the same sinking boat now." She grabbed the nearest comlink. "All units, new orders, survive, regroup, and prepare for a hell of a fight." As the first night fell on Zarnok 3, the battlefield burned under the light of falling Onyx warpods. The war between humans and Zarnoks had become something far worse. The Onyx swarm was here, and death was the only thing it promised. Captain Sarah Knox stood on the bridge of the TSS Revenant, staring at the tactical map. Red danger signals blinked everywhere. Her fleet, once proud and unstoppable, now looked small and weak. Dozens of Onyx ships filled low orbit. Their strange organic hulls absorbed sensor scans. Their weapons, unknown but deadly. Sarah's heart pounded. "Status report." She barked. Her officers worked fast. "Enemy landing pods still dropping across the planet. Captain, ground forces are getting crushed. Our artillery barely slowing them down. Enemy ships have started atmospheric bombardments. Casualties rising in all sectors." Another officer shouted, "We've lost contact with 6 of our ground outposts in the last hour." Sarah clenched her fists. Her Terran fleet had crushed dozens of alien worlds before this, but this felt different. It felt like they had poked a sleeping giant, and now the giant was awake and angry. On the planet's surface, Terran Marines scrambled for cover. Onyx warriors moved through the ruins. Like shadows, their armor turned aside bullets. Their blades sliced through vehicles. Their cannons blasted apart entire buildings with a single shot. Private Jenkins and his squad took shelter in the remains of a school building. Smoke filled the air. Jenkins checked his rifle. "Down to his last magazine. Where's the evac?" he shouted into his cum. "Only static," answered. Sergeant Hale cursed. "We're cut off. Fall back to rally point. Bravo, move." But as they sprinted through rubble-filled streets, 3 Onyx warriors appeared ahead. Their glowing red eyes locked onto the humans. Without a word, they charged. Jenkins barely had time to react. Laser blasts from his squad lit up the street, but the Onyx kept coming. One leaped through the air, landing on top of Sergeant Hale, crushing him instantly. Jenkins turned and ran. Explosions erupted behind him. Somewhere Terran artillery shells fell, but they did little damage. In orbit, Sarah Knox stared at the damage reports. "We need reinforcements," her ex-Commander Torres said. Sarah nodded grimly. "Send a distress call to Fleet Command. Use Priority 1 encryption." Her comms officer hesitated. "Ma'am, long-range communications are being jammed. The Onyx swarm, they're blocking everything." Silence filled the bridge. They were alone, cut off, trapped with the enemy. Sarah took a deep breath. "Fine. Then we hold. Prep all point defense systems. Divert power to shields. If those things come for us up here, we're not going down without a fight. On the Zarnok side, Commander Varric sat in his ruined command center, a head in his hands. His own soldiers were dying by the thousands. He had called the swarm, and now the swarm was killing everyone, both human and Zarnok forces, crushed like insects. Second-in-command Officer Lina approached. "Sir, what do we do?" she asked, voice shaking. Varric slowly stood. "We find survivors, we hide, and we pray this storm passes." In the forests outside the city, small groups of Terran and Zarnok soldiers, once enemies, now ran side by side, escaping Onyx hunting parties. Private Jenkins, bloody and exhausted, stumbled into a ruined park and froze. Before him stood a Zarnok officer, her weapon drawn. Jenkins raised his rifle, but she didn't fire. Both of them looked at each other, then at the sky, where more Onyx pods fell like black rain. Without a word, they nodded. And together, they ran for cover. Back on the Revenant, Sarah Knox gathered her senior officers. "We're changing tactics," she said. "No more offense. Full defense mode. Any civilian ships in orbit are to retreat. Tell them to jump out system. We'll cover them for as long as we can." Her weapons officer frowned. "Captain, even with all guns firing, I'm not sure we'll hold." Sarah smiled coldly. "Then we make it cost them. Every meter they take, we make them bleed for it." Hours passed. Human point defense turrets fired non-stop. Railguns lit up the sky. Fighter squadrons launched in waves, taking heavy losses, but scoring hits where they could. Onyx ships responded with dark energy beams, cutting through Terran armor like hot knives. In space, debris fields grew thicker. Flaming wrecks of Terran frigates drifted slowly, but the humans fought on. Down below, something strange happened. Some Onyx ground units started changing. Their armor shifted. Their weapons grew larger. They adapted to every human counterattack. If humans used lasers, Onyx grew reflective plating. If humans used explosives, Onyx thickened their armor. Terran commanders sent frantic reports to orbit. "Captain, they're evolving during combat. We hit them with thermal rounds." Next wave came in with heat shields. Sarah cursed loudly. "Monsters, they're learning as they fight." The situation was spiraling out of control. On the Zarnik side, Commander Varric made his decision. He gathered what remained of his officers. "We need to contact the Terrans," he said. The room went silent. "Sir, they're the enemy," Officer Lina protested. Varric shook his head. "Not anymore. Now the swarm is the enemy of everyone." Across the battlefield, strange things happened. In some ruined sectors, human and Zarnok soldiers fought back to back, covering each other. Shooting at the common thread. Jenkins and the Zarnok officer, her name was Rilka, managed to set up an improvised defense point. Together they repelled 3 Onyx assaults, using Terran grenades and Zarnik plasma launchers side by side. As night fell again on Zarnik 3, Captain Knox called her officers for one last meeting. "Listen up," she said. "We're holding, but barely. If we don't find a way to break their landing cycle, we'll drown in their numbers." Her science officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, we've been analyzing their ships. They're using some kind of gravitational slipstream to bring reinforcements in waves. If we can overload the field, we might block more Onyx landings for a while." Sarah nodded. "Good. Prep the Gravipulse warheads. I want them ready by dawn." Meanwhile, a small Terran recon unit made contact with Zarnok survivors, Varric and Knox, enemies just days ago, now prepared for an uneasy meeting. As the first light of dawn rose over the burning horizon, both sides realized the truth. If they didn't work together, they would all die here. The first light of dawn barely touched the horizon when Captain Sarah Knox stood at the edge of the command platform inside the TSS Revenant. Her eyes were dark with exhaustion. Her ship, scarred and battered, floated above the burning planet below. Smoke trails rose from dozens of impact sites. Entire cities gone. Thousands of lives lost. Her voice came steady despite it all. "Is the Gravipulse warhead ready?" she asked. Her weapons officer nodded. "Yes, ma'am, it's primed. Once we fire, the grav field will destabilize everything in low orbit for at least 2 hours. That includes us." Sarah gave a bitter smile. "We won't survive by playing it safe." Down on the planet, Commander Varric of the Zarnok stood surrounded by Terran Marines. His own soldiers looked nervous, but they followed him. Strange, Varric thought. Days ago we were enemies. Now we fight side by side. Sergeant Hale Jenkins, replacement squad leader, walked over. "We've set up charges along the eastern trench line," Hale reported. Jenkins sat nearby, checking his rifle for the 100th time. Next to him, Rilke the Zarnok officer cleaned her plasma rifle. Neither said much, but they fought well together. Above them, the Onyx swarm gathered for another massive assault. Hundreds of enemy troops advanced toward their position. Onyx artillery started to pound the human Zarnek line. Explosions threw dirt and bodies into the air. Jenkins ducked behind a broken wall. "We're not gonna hold," he muttered. Hale heard him. "Then we die buying time." A signal came from orbit. Captain Knox's voice filled the comm channel. "This is Revenant. Grav pulse detonation in T-minutes for minutes. Brace for shockwaves." Varric grabbed the nearest comm unit. "Captain Knox, if you're going to light the sky, give us at least 5 minutes. My people are still in the blast zone." Knox's voice stayed cold. "You have 4 minutes, Commander. Get clear if you can." Varric cursed but started shouting orders. "Fall back, all units. Pull 2 secondary defense lines. Move." Jenkins and Rilke ran side by side as the ground shook beneath them. Explosions rained down. Onyx warbeasts, massive biomechanical tanks, advanced through the firestorm. One of them turned its main cannon toward the retreating humans, and Zarnok hit the deck. Hale screamed. A plasma bolt incinerated 3 soldiers instantly, but others kept running. Rilke grabbed Jenkins, pulling him behind a collapsed wall just as another blast hit. Back in space, Captain Knox stood firm as her weapons officer counted down. 30 seconds. 2010. The Revenant fired. A glowing sphere of unstable gravity formed in low orbit, and then, the sky tore open. A massive shockwave burst outward. Onyx landing ships disintegrated. Mid-air. Enemy drop pods exploded before reaching the surface. Even debris already in orbit spun away violently, smashed into itself. On the ground, both human and Zarnok soldiers fell flat as the shockwave rolled over them. Windows shattered for miles, entire Onyx formations crushed. The air burned, silence followed. Jenkins slowly lifted his head. He saw something he hadn't seen in days. The Onyx advance stopped. Bodies littered the field. No new landing ships fell from the sky. For now, the invasion paused. Back on the Revenant, cheering broke out on the bridge. But Captain Knox didn't smile. "Damage report?" she asked. Her XO spoke quickly. "We lost 2 gunships from the blast. Shields down to 15%. Engine coils overheated. We're not going anywhere for a while." Sarah nodded. "Then let's use this time wisely." Down below, Varric and Hale surveyed the battlefield. "Is it over?" Hale asked, still panting from the run. Varric shook his head. "No, just slowed." They both looked to the sky where black smoke curled upward. Later that night, a secret meeting happened inside the ruins of an old government bunker. Captain Knox came down to the surface in a drop shuttle. She met Varric face to face for the first time. They sat at a dusty table with maps spread before them. Jenkins and Rilke stood guard near the door. Knox spoke first. "We bought some time, but not much. Our intel says the Onyx mothership is still out there, gathering energy for another wave." Varric rubbed his temples. "My scouts say the same. They're adapting again. Next time, we won't stop them with a grav pulse." Knox pointed to the map. "Then we hit them first. We target their mothership. If we kill the brain, the body dies." Silence filled the room. Varric's second in command, Lena, spoke up. "Are you suggesting a joint strike? Humans and Zarnek attacking together?" Knox looked at her sharply. "I'm not suggesting, I'm telling. If we want to live, we have no choice." Varric leaned forward. "What's your plan?" Knox tapped the map. "We have 1 remaining battleship in orbit with enough firepower for a long-range strike, but we'll need to get close enough to target the mothership's core. That means a ground team infiltrating their main relay point here." She pointed to a location deep inside Onyx-controlled territory. "We'll plant a targeting beacon once it's active. The Revenant will fire everything we've got." Lena stared. "That's a suicide mission." Knox gave a grim smile. "Then let's make sure we die well." Varric stood. "All right, Captain. We're with you." Jenkins looked at Rilke. "You in?" he asked quietly. She smirked. "Till the end." Preparations began immediately. Human engineers modified Zarnok stealth suits for Terran use. Zarnok mechanics helped repair damaged human vehicles. For the first time in history, 2 enemy armies worked together, building a strike force. Captain Knox watched her people loading weapons and supplies. Her heart felt heavy, but determined, as she boarded the drop shuttle for the infiltration mission. She turned to her "Torres, you have command of the Revenant. If we fail down there, fire on the mothership anyway, even if it costs us everything." Torres saluted. Double quotes. "Yes, ma'am, good hunting." The shuttle engines roared to life. The small strike team, Terrans and Zarnak together lifted off into the burning dawn, flying straight toward the heart of the enemy. Their final mission had begun, and far above, the Onyx mothership opened new bays, charging weapons, preparing for the next wave. But this time, the humans weren't waiting to be hunted. They were going on the attack. The small drop shuttle cut through the thin atmosphere like a burning knife. Inside, Captain Sarah Knox sat strapped into her seat. Her helmet rested on her knees, her eyes sharp and focused. Jenkins sat across from her, checking his rifle for the last time. Next to him, Rilke, the Zarnak warrior, adjusted the settings on her plasma rifle. Commander Varek sat near the rear hatch, quietly speaking with Lina in their own language. A nervous silence filled the cabin. Only the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the control panel broke it. Knox stood and looked at her team. "This is it," she said. "Our target is the Onyx relay station, deep inside enemy territory. Once we plant the beacon, the Revenant will fire everything we have. No second chances, no backup." She paused. "I know some of you still don't trust each other. Humans and Zarnak fighting side by side isn't something anyone imagined a few weeks ago, but forget the past. Right now we're soldiers. That's all that matters." Varek stood too. "My people, and yours, will die if we fail. There's no room for mistakes." The shuttle rocked as anti-air flak burst around them. Rilke grinned. "Looks like they noticed us." Jenkins pulled his helmet on. "Good. Let them watch us coming." The pilot's voice crackled over the speaker. "Touchdown in 30 seconds. Hold tight." The ground below was nothing but craters, broken towers, and thick Onyx patrols moving in tight formations. The shuttle dropped fast, deploying smoke flares and countermeasures. They landed hard behind a destroyed factory. The rear hatch burst open. Knox shouted, "Move, move, move." Her team poured out into the rubble, weapons ready. Onyx drones spotted them instantly. A hail of plasma fire tore through the air. Jenkins and Rilke opened fire together, dropping 3 drones before they could fully engage. Varek's squad launched a volley of pulse grenades, clearing a path forward. The team sprinted toward a narrow maintenance tunnel that led deep underground. The entrance was small, hidden behind twisted metal and debris, perfect for infiltration. Knox led the way. Inside the tunnel, the temperature rose quickly. The walls hummed with Onyx energy flows, glowing lines of green and blue. Power pulsed through conduits all around them. Jenkins breathed heavily. "Feels like we're crawling inside a live wire." Rilke kept scanning ahead with her thermal scope. No life signs. Yet Varek's voice came through her earpiece. "Keep moving. We're on a timer." They pushed deeper. Every step took them closer to the relay station buried below the surface. The tunnel ended at a large maintenance door. Lina hacked the control panel, forcing it open. Beyond it, a vast chamber opened up. Rows of Onyx communication towers rose like metallic trees, all pulsing with dark energy. At the center stood the relay core, a massive sphere floating in midair, surrounded by swirling rings of data light. Guards patrolled in tight units. Elite Onyx soldiers in heavy armor. Rilke cursed softly. "That's more than we expected." Knox turned to her team. "Jenkins, Rilke, Varek, you're with me. We go straight for the core and plant the beacon." She pointed at the others. "Hale, Lina, the rest of you, set charges along the main supports. If we fail to signal the Revenant, blow the place manually." Hale grinned. "With pleasure." Knox nodded. "Let's move." They split. Knox's team stayed low, moving from cover to cover. Jenkins threw a flash grenade into the first patrol group. Blinding light filled the chamber. By the time the Onyx soldiers reacted, 3 of them were already down. Rilke fired controlled bursts, dropping another 2. Varek moved with deadly precision, using his twin blades to take out an Onyx officer at close range. Alarms screamed. Now the whole station knew they were here. Knox and her team reached the base of the relay core. A blast shield blocked the access point. "Cover me," she shouted. She pulled a portable drill from her pack and started cutting into the panel. More enemy troops arrived. Plasma bolts rained down on their position. Jenkins, ducked behind a pillar, were pinned. Varek tossed a thermal grenade over their heads. A bright explosion cleared the nearest attackers. Rilke moved forward, picking off stragglers. Knox worked fast. The drill finished cutting. She ripped the panel off and exposed the inner circuits. Pulling the beacon from her pack, she connected it directly to the power feed. The device blinked red, then yellow, then green. "Beacon online," she shouted. Immediately, on the Revenant in orbit. Alarms triggered. Torres, the acting XO, saw the signal. Target acquired. Locking coordinates on the Onyx mothership. Gunners moved fast. Energy coils charged. missiles armed. Torres gave the order, fire, back underground. Nox heard the deep rumble as the Revenant unleashed its full weapons payload from orbit. Seconds later, the earth above shook violently. Chunks of ceiling crashed down. Support pillars cracked. Dust filled the air. Let's go. Nox screamed. Her team ran for the exit tunnel. Behind them, Hale and Lena triggered their charges. Explosions ripped through the relay station. The whole underground facility began to collapse. On the surface, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy from the Revenant punched through the atmosphere and struck the Onyx mothership directly. The mothership's shields flared, failed. Then the entire vessel erupted in a chain of internal detonations. From orbit, the explosion looked like a second sun lighting up the sky. On the ground, the shockwave hit. Nox's team barely made it to the surface before the ground buckled beneath them. They climbed out of the collapsing tunnel and watched as the Onyx command ship broke apart in the upper atmosphere. Fire rained from the sky. Dozens of Onyx landing craft went dead mid-flight and crashed into the ground. For the first time since the invasion began, the Onyx fell into total disarray. Jenkins sat down on a piece of rubble, breathing hard. Actually did it. Rilke sat beside him, equally exhausted but smiling. Of course we did. Varric and Nox stood side by side, staring at the burning sky. Nox keyed her comms. This is Captain Nox to Revenant. The relay is destroyed. The mothership, gone. Torres' voice answered, full of disbelief and relief. Copy that, Captain. Pulling you out now. Dropships incoming. As the survivors gathered, as medics began treating the wounded, and as soldiers both human and Zarnik sheared together for the first time, Nox allowed herself a small smile. But she knew this was just one battle in a much larger war, and somewhere, out there, the Onyx would regroup. They always did. Nox turned to her team. Rest for now, but stay sharp. Jenkins laughed bitterly. We're humans, Captain. Staying sharp is what we do best. Above them, the fires of victory burned bright. For now, they had won. Earth's orbit was no longer peaceful. Dozens of human warships floated above the planet, their weapons hot and ready. The Zarnok fleet stood beside them, sleek and deadly. For the first time in history, two species stood together, waiting for a common enemy. Captain Sarah Nox stood on the bridge of the Revenant, staring at the tactical screen. The warning from the Dark Belt still echoed in her mind. They come. And now, they were here. Multiple signatures detected. Torres shouted. Unknown ships entering from deep space. Hundreds. No, thousands. Jenkins cursed under his breath. They didn't waste time. Nox remained calm. Sound battle. Stations. All ships. Prepare for engagement. On the screen, space rippled. Black bone-like ships emerged from nothing, like shadows becoming real. Their hulls seemed alive, moving, twisting, like they breathed. Varric stood beside Nox, his face grim. This is worse than I imagined. The alien fleet didn't hesitate. They opened fire with weapons that defied all known science. Beams of dark energy shot toward the human and Zarnak lines. One human frigate exploded instantly, torn apart like paper. Evasive maneuvers. Nox shouted, "Return fire." The battle began. Earth's defenses lit up. Railguns fired. Missiles streaked across the stars. Plasma cannons from the Zarnok ships punched through enemy lines, but the shadow ships moved too fast. They shifted like liquid, avoiding many attacks. Nox watched in horror as more human ships fell. The Resolute, the Independence, and two Zarnok cruisers vanished under enemy fire. On the surface of Earth, sirens wailed. Civilians rushed to shelters. Anti-orbital guns fired upward, trying to stop incoming enemy dropships, because now the enemy wasn't staying in space, they were landing. On every continent, Nox opened a comm line to all forces. This is Captain Nox. The enemy has reached Earth ground forces. Prepare for urban defense. Protect the civilians at all costs. Jenkins turned from his console. Captain, we're being hailed. By them. Nox's heart skipped. On screen, a terrifying image appeared. A creature, tall, pale, with black eyes like empty pits. Its voice echoed through the bridge, deep and hollow. Surrender. Your worlds are dust. Your lives are nothing. Join the silence, or be erased. Nox stepped forward. Her voice was steady. You want Earth. Come and take it. The screen went dark. The enemy fleet surged forward. Nox turned to her crew. We hold this line. We don't back down. Jenkins smiled grimly. HFY right, Captain. Nox allowed herself a small grin. Yeah, humanity. F*******. Yeah. The Revenant dove into battle. Fighter squadrons launched from every human carrier's Zarnok. Boarding teams teleported directly onto enemy ships. On the ground, soldiers fought street by street. In New York, Captain Martinez led her troops, holding Central Park against impossible odds. In Tokyo, General Saito deployed experimental rail tanks to blast enemy walkers. In London, snipers and infantry teams worked together, slowing the alien advance. Everywhere, humanity resisted. But the enemy kept coming. On the Revenant, Nox watched as Earth's defense grid began to buckle. "We need reinforcements," Torres said, voice shaking. "There are none," Lena replied. Nox gritted her teeth. "Then we make our stand here." Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ship. Smoke filled the bridge. "Damage to engine room," Torres yelled. "Fire teams responding." Jenkins looked at the screen. "Captain, they're trying to surround us." Nox's mind raced. "We break through. Full power to forward shields. Aim at their largest cruiser, we punch a hole. Or we die trying." The Revenant surged forward, with plasma guns blazing. The ship rammed into the enemy line. Explosions tore through space. Enemy ships shattered. The Revenant broke free. Barely. In the distance, other human and Zarnek ships followed, regrouping around Nox's flagship, but losses were high. Too high. Varric appeared beside Nox. "We cannot win this way. Their numbers, their technology, it's too much." Nox slammed her fist on the console. "Then we changed the rules." She opened a private channel to all Allied commanders. "Prepare for Operation Hellstorm." Jenkins turned in surprise. "Captain, that's still Nox's voice was cold. "We don't have time. If we don't push them back now, there won't be an Earth left to save." All around the planet, new weapons, long hidden, began to power up. Deep underground, in secret bunkers, Earth's last resort weapons were armed. Massive energy spikes appeared on every continent. The enemy noticed. They shifted their attack, trying to stop whatever was coming. Nox stood tall, her eyes burned with determination. "Let's show them what humans do." When cornered, at her command, Earth unleashed hell. Super lasers fired from hidden bases. Orbital defense satellites lit up the sky. EMP bursts disabled enemy ships mid-flight. Massive kinetic rods fell from orbit, striking enemy landing zones with devastating force. For the first time, the Shadow Fleet pulled back, not defeated, but slowed. The enemy regrouped at the edge of the solar system. The battle for Earth was far from over, but tonight, humanity had survived and Earth still stood. On the Revenant, Nox surveyed the damage. She turned to her crew. "This was just round one," she said. "Get ready, they'll come again, and next time we hit back even harder." Jenkins grinned. "HFY, Captain." Nox smiled. HFY, outside the window. Earth burned in places, but still turned blue and alive. For now, the war wasn't over. Earth was wounded but still alive. Human cities stood in ruins. Smoke rose from battlefields across the planet. Millions mourned their dead, but humanity refused to bow. On board the Revenant, Captain Sarah Nox stood before her battered crew. "Status report," she said. Jenkins answered first. "Enemy fleet still holding near the edge of the solar system. They're not retreating. Looks like they're preparing for a second wave." Varric, the Zarno commander, stepped forward. "We estimate another 20,000 ships." The bridge went silent. 20,000. Nox didn't flinch. "Let them come," she said. Torres frowned. "Captain, even with all our defenses, we won't survive another hit like the last one." Nox nodded. "I know, that's why we won't wait for them." Jenkins stared. "You're suggesting we attack them first?" Nox smiled. "A final strike. Hit them before they're ready. Before they bring full force." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Varric tilted his head. "Your ships are damaged. Your people are tired. It's a bold move, even for humans." Nox shrugged. "That's what we do. When someone threatens our home, we hit back hard." Across Earth, preparations began. Engineers worked day and night to repair ships. Ground forces loaded supplies and ammunition. Zarnok soldiers volunteered to join human crews. Every working warship, from the largest battleship to the smallest fighter, was made ready. In secret hangars, Earth's most dangerous weapon was finally prepared. Project Hammerfall, a classified kinetic weapon, one shot, one chance, capable of wiping out an entire enemy fleet, but it had never been tested. Nox stood in the command center, all ships ready to move in 1 hour. Jenkins looked at her. "Captain, there's no going back after this." Nox smiled faintly. "Never was." The fleet launched. Human ships, Zarnek allies, every vessel they could find. From Earth orbit, the combined fleet jumped toward the edge of the solar system, toward the waiting enemy. On the way, pilots wrote messages on the sides of their ships. Never again. For Earth HFY. When they arrived, the enemy fleet was larger than anyone imagined. A wall of black, bone-like ships stretched across the stars. The enemy stood ready, but Nox didn't hesitate. Attack formation, Delta fighters, out first. Battleships, target, their carriers. The battle began. The sky filled with fire. Thousands of ships collided in space. Missiles streaked through the void. Plasma cannons roared. Zarnok ramming ships smashed into enemy lines, sacrificing themselves to create holes for human squadrons to break through. Jenkins coordinated fighter wings, sending them after weak points. Torres managed shields and countermeasures, trying to keep the Revenant alive. Varric led a boarding party onto one of the enemy dreadnoughts, planting charges deep inside. One by one, enemy ships exploded, but the cost was high. Human ships burned. Allied cruisers vanished in bright flashes. Nox gritted her teeth. Time for hammerfall, she said. Jenkins hesitated. Captain, we'll need to get close, within suicide range. Nox nodded. Then that's what we do. The Revenant, along with 2 surviving battleships, charged toward the enemy flagship, the largest ship in the enemy fleet. A massive, planet-sized cruiser surrounded by protective escorts. Every gun turned toward them. The Revenant shook under enemy fire. Hull breaches opened, across decks. Fires burned inside the ship, but Nox kept going. Divert all power to forward shields. Torres screamed. Over the alarms. We won't survive another hit. Nox stared at the enemy flagship. We don't need to survive. We just need to get close enough at the last second. The Revenant launched the hammerfall projectile. A dense tungsten rod, accelerated to near light speed, aimed directly at the enemy's heart. The enemy flagship fired everything it had. Lasers, plasma, kinetic rounds. But nothing could stop it. Hammerfall struck. The enemy flagship tore apart in a blinding explosion. The shockwave hit the enemy fleet, causing chain reactions, detonating fuel cores, collapsing energy fields. Thousands of enemy ships vanished in seconds. Space itself seemed to shake. Nox was thrown to the floor as the Revenant spun out of control. Blackness took her hours. Later, she woke to the sound of emergency alarms and crew shouting for damage control. Earth forces, bloody and broken, had won. Barely. Jenkins helped Nox stand. You did it, Captain. They're gone. What's left of them is running. Varric appeared, covered in burns, but alive. You saved your world. And ours. Nox looked out the cracked window. The battlefield was silent now. Wreckage drifted everywhere, but Earth was safe. For now. Nox exhaled slowly. Send a message to Earth, she said. Jenkins nodded. What should I say? Nox smiled faintly. Tell them we stood. Tell them humanity fought back and won. Jenkins grinned. HFY. Nox chuckled weakly. HFY. On Earth, when the message arrived, people cheered in the streets. Soldiers hugged each other. Families wept in relief. Across the galaxy, other species watched the news and finally understood. You don't mess with humanity. Not now, not ever. The sky above the battlefield was still heavy with smoke. The fires from the destroyed Onyx mothership burned bright, lighting up the night like a second sun. Captain Sarah Nox stood on a ridge, overlooking the ruins. Her face was tired. Her eyes scanned the horizon. They had won a great battle, but the war was far from over. Around her, human and Zarnok soldiers moved cautiously, cleaning weapons and checking for survivors. The alliance between the two races felt new and strange, but necessary. Commander Varric approached Nox, his heavy boots crunching on broken glass. We have slowed the enemy, he said, but we have not broken them. Nox nodded. The mothership is gone, but I have reports of other Onyx fleets far from here. They will come. Varric's gaze darkened. They have their secrets. Their strength is not just in numbers. Behind them, Sergeant Hale walked over, carrying a datapad. Captain, he said, scouts picked up strange signals coming from an asteroid belt near the outer rim. Nox took the pad. The display showed strange energy readings. Unknown technology, Hale added. Nox frowned. Could it be reinforcements? Before anyone could answer, an alarm blared across the camp. Tora's voice crackled over the comms. Captain Nox, this is the Revenant. We have detected an unknown fleet moving fast toward our position. Nox's heart sank. Details, unknown. Ships, heavy shields, weapons unlike anything we've seen. Varric tightened his grip on his rifle. An ambush. Nox gave a sharp nod. Prepare defenses. Alert every soldier, we might face a new enemy. The camp went into high alert. Humans and Zarnok worked side by side, setting up barricades, charging weapons, and readying their vehicles. Nox moved to the command tent, where maps and holograms lit the room. She studied the data with Lina and her XO Torres. The unknown fleet is approaching from the outer rim, heading straight for us, Torres said. Lina pointed to the screen. Their ships are too fast for our sensors. They avoid detection until they are very close. Nox clenched her fists. We thought the Onyx were our greatest threat. But this. She looked at Varric. Do you know anything about these ships? Varric shook his head. They are not Onyx, not known to my people either. Jenkins entered the tent, his face grim. Captain, the troops are ready, but morale is low. After what we've been through, Nox placed a firm hand on his shoulder. We've survived worse. We fight together, or we die divided. Outside, the horizon began to glow. The unknown fleet appeared. Massive and silent, ships like dark shadows moved quickly toward the planet. Nox watched as they dropped dozens of small attack craft, swarming like angry hornets. The battle began. Explosions lit the sky. Lasers and plasma fire tore through the darkness. Jenkins led a squadron of fighters against the incoming swarm. Rilke and her Zarnak warriors fought on the ground, defending the camp. The unknown enemy was ruthless. Their weapons cut through shields with ease. Their tactics were unfamiliar and deadly. Nox stood at the command post, shouting orders. We hold the line. Protect the wounded. Fire at will. Hours passed like minutes. The enemy pushed harder and harder. Casualties mounted, but humans and Zarnok refused to break. In the chaos, Nox noticed a small group of enemy ships heading straight for the command. Tent Torres, intercept them. Torres responded instantly, sending all available fighters. The small enemy squadron tried to crash the command post, but Jenkins and his pilots intercepted them just in time. After fierce dogfights, the enemy retreat. Nox exhaled sharply. We can't keep this up, Varric said quietly. No, Nox agreed. We need a new plan. That night, the survivors gathered. Nox addressed them. We have made our stand, but this war is bigger than us. She paused. The Onyx were only the first wave. Now, a greater threat comes from the darkness beyond. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Jenkins raised his voice. We fight. We survive. We win together. The crowd erupted in cheers. Nox smiled. For the first time in a long while, hope burned in their hearts. But in the shadows of the galaxy, something watched and it waited. The camp was quiet. Too quiet. Too quiet. Captain Sarah Nox sat in the command tent, staring at the large star map in front of her. The unknown enemy had attacked and pulled back, but the damage they left was clear. Many soldiers were injured, supplies were running low. And worst of all, no one knew who or what the new enemy really was. Torres entered the tent with a worried look. Captain, he said, the long-range scanners picked up a strange signal from deep space. Nox raised her head. Another fleet. Torres shook his head. No, it's just static, but the pattern looks intelligent. Nox stood up. Show me. The screen lit up with strange pulses, short bursts, long bursts, repeating. Lina analyzed the data quickly. This is not Onyx, not human, not Zarnok either, but it's a message, I think. They're calling us. Varric entered, holding a tablet. I've seen something like this before, he said. Legends, about ships that vanish, and never return. Nox felt a chill down her spine. Where's the source? Torres zoomed the map out. Deep inside the dark belt. The uncharted sector. Far beyond known space. Nox made her decision fast. Prepare the Revenant. I want a small team. We're going in. Torres looked shocked. Captain, that area, no one comes back from there. Nox's voice was steady. Exactly, that's why we're going. By the next morning the Revenant was ready. Jenkins, Lina Varric, and a small strike team boarded the ship. Nox stood at the bridge. All engines, full power, set course for the dark belt. The ship lifted off and entered FTL speed, jumping toward the unknown. Hours passed in silence. The space outside turned darker than normal. Stars disappeared. Even the ship's sensors struggled to track their location. The crew grew tense. Jenkins tried to lighten the mood. So, who's ready to fight ghosts? Nobody laughed. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Lina shouted from her console. Captain, gravity fluctuations ahead. Nox braced herself. Hold steady. The ship shook violently. A strange black mist surrounded them. Lights flickered. For a few terrifying seconds, the Revenant spun out of control. Then everything stopped. The ship floated. Silent, dead. Torres ran diagnostics. We've lost engines, weapons, shields, everything. Varric looked through the viewing screen there. Look, out in the darkness. Massive shapes moved. Gigantic ships, bigger than any human or Onyx design, drifted without sound. Their surfaces looked like old stone mixed with metal, covered in strange symbols. Jenkins whispered, "What are they?" Lina stared at her screen. No life signs, no energy, but they're watching us. I can feel it. Suddenly, a loud, deep voice echoed through every speaker on the ship. It was not human, it was not Zaranok, it was ancient, cold and full of power. "Intruders, you enter the grave of empires. You are not welcome." Everyone froze. Nox stood, heart racing. "This is Captain Sarah Nox of the human warship Revenant. We come in peace. Identify yourself." There was no answer. Instead, the giant ships began to glow. Energy built up along their hulls. Lina shouted, "Captain, they're powering weapons." Nox reacted fast. "Torres, restart engines. Jenkins, man the defense grid. Varric, prepare boarding teams in case they breach us." Torres worked fast, trying to bypass the dead systems. Jenkins rushed to weapons control. Though the guns were still offline, Varric and his Zarnok warriors grabbed plasma rifles and secured the corridors. Suddenly, one of the ancient ships fired a strange beam. It wasn't a normal energy weapon. It passed through the Revenant like light through fog, but as it passed, systems flickered back to life. Nox blinked. Engines, weapons, everything's back online. Torres shouted, "We're operational again." But Lina wasn't smiling. "Captain, check the sensors." Nox turned to the screen. Her blood went cold. The ship was now surrounded by hundreds, maybe thousands, of small objects moving fast toward them. They weren't ships, they were drones. Small, fast, and deadly. Jenkins shouted, "Incoming." Nox yelled, "Full power to shields. Jenkins, open fire. Get us out of here." The Revenant roared to life. Plasma cannons lit the dark space. Drones exploded by the dozens. But more kept coming. Varric led ground teams, shooting down the ones that managed to breach the hull. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The entire ship shook under the assault. Nox stood her ground at the bridge, barking orders. "Plot a course back to Allied space. Jump when ready." Torres struggled with the controls. "I need 30 more seconds." Lina worked on jamming the enemy signals. Jenkins kept firing, his hands moving fast over the console. Varric reported from below, "We're holding them off, but barely." Just as another wave of drones approached, the FTL drive roared to life. The Revenant jumped, leaving the dark sector behind, barely alive. When they emerged back into known space, the crew cheered, but Nox didn't smile. On her screen, a single message from the Dark Fleet remained, "We have seen you. Now we come." The crew went silent again. The war had just entered a darker, more dangerous phase. Nox stood tall. "Prepare for what's next. Warn all human colonies, and alert the Zarnok. This was just the beginning." The Revenant turned toward Earth, carrying news of a new enemy, and a warning for the entire galaxy.